Sorry about that. No person shall address the meeting in the public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of a public body if, after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw from the meeting, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. We will open the meeting up with a roll call. Want to do it?
Sure.
Okay. There's three of us here. Amy's had contacted me and can't make the meeting. Ed Jarvis,
Present.
David Lanoy,
Present.
and myself, Dave Moscaratolo, are present. We will approve the meeting minutes for May. I think we were all here at May. We can't approve June because it was only me, Amy, and Rick's no longer on the Public Safety Commission. So I will open it up for if somebody wants to make a motion in a second to approve May meetings.
So moved, Jarvis. Second.
All right. Any discussion on the May meetings? I just want to I think it's the May meeting that I want to make a correction on. On the last statement, I did say, I believe we take advantage of our first responders. I didn't mean to use the word advantage. I meant we take them for granted. So if we could correct that for the record and take them for granted instead of advantage, I would appreciate that. Thank you. All right. We'll make a motion to approve the meetings. I approve them.
Aye.
Ed?
Approved.
Okay, May meetings are approved. Excellent. Thank you. All right, we will move on to public comment. Is there anybody here present? We'll do present here first and then we'll go to Zoom. Is there anyone here present that wants to speak? Just step up to the chair and you can just state your name and your address, and I'm not going to time you. I just respect you'll stay within the 3 minutes.
It's going to be very, very brief, but there's two people entering the waiting room.
Yes, thank you for everybody keeping an eye on that. I appreciate that. I think they're in. If you could just state your name and your street, and we can go from there.
Jesus Leva, 88 Deerfield Street, Greenfield. I just wanted to thank the Public Safety Commission for putting the items on the agenda of reviewing policy relating to driver screening for public safety officials for safe driving issues, and also for putting a review of potential reporting of driver safety issues on the agenda. I can't speak for anybody really except for myself, but that's really, I think, what the public is asking for, through the various public comments that have happened over the last years, is for there to be a critical review of all of the previously mentioned issues with regard to public safety. And I am grateful that you are starting with at least one of them at this meeting tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Is there anybody here locally else that wants to speak? Okay, is there anybody on Zoom? If you do want to speak, can you show yourself and kind of wave? I'll take that as a no. All right, we will move on. New business. First on the agenda is AMR general updates. If you folks, you can sit here or you can come up to there. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. Whatever you're comfortable with. We did get your updates, so we appreciate that. Excellent. I passed them out to the rest of the commissioners. If you could introduce yourselves for the public.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Patrick Leonardo. I'm the regional director for AMR here in Massachusetts.
My name is Kim D'Angelo. I'm the operations manager.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. So I'd like to first introduce Kim D'Angelo. She's the new operations manager here in Western Massachusetts. Started a little over 5 months ago, and she'll be taking my position up here in Greenfield with full oversight of the EMS coordination operations of all field employees in coordination with the police department and fire department for any issues or incidents for the responses up here in Greenfield.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please don't treat you well. Just let me know.
I'm not worried.
Just gotta have a little humor.
Kim is also a currently active working paramedic who actually still works on the road. Is also in charge of our critical care transport unit that is out of Bay State, which helps transport many of the high acuity patients that start up here in Franklin and need to go down to Bay State, which is a new service that we started in the last 6 months or so that we were accredited for. So it took her about 2.5 years to get that accreditation. She can probably speak on that if anybody has any questions, but it's first of its kind service in the state of Massachusetts, actually second. So it's quite the venture and a lot of work. So we're pretty proud of the services that ambulance can provide to Franklin County in general with the level of care that they have.
Excellent.
That said, for last month, we did have 496 total calls for request in the system through 911. Of which 255 of them did end up being a transport to the hospital. 86 of them are dry runs. A dry run is a call in which we go and respond, but we don't end up actually transporting. We actually get on scene. 155 cancels, which is just calls that come in that we don't end up getting on scene for. And then when it comes to mutual aid and assistance to our partnership with Greenfield Fire, we had 97 calls for the month that we did pass on to Greenfield Fire that they managed the responses on for. Of the 255 transports, we do have a steady and reoccurring efficiency when it comes to response times. Of the highest acuity calls within the system, which are known as Delta calls, we had 66 of them with the average response time of 6 minutes and 41 seconds. Of the categories, 5 minutes or less, 30% of those calls, statistically, it's actually 29.62% happen in that category. And the bulk at 53.67% happen between 6 to 10 minutes for responses in our area. And then it goes in increments of 5, 9%, 5, and 1%. So considering the area that we cover and the mileage within the county and some of the mutual aid that we do cover, those numbers are pretty standardized. So if anybody has any questions about those, we're more than happy to answer those questions. Other than that, we have hired 3 new EMTs into the system to keep our retention and recruiting active to make sure our staffing stays at standardization for the benchmark that we require for the contract. We also have 2 upgrading paramedics within the system. One is currently on maternity leave. The other one is due to get cleared pretty soon, which will then add another full-time paramedic into the Greenfield system. We have no incidents or complaints that were brought to our attention for the month.
Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them.
Excellent. You want to speak of that role just for a minute and tell us a little bit more detail on it?
Sure. As the operations manager or the critical care?
The critical, I'm interested to hear just a little bit more on that.
Sure. So our critical care transport team transports patients targeted to an ICU. So they provide ICU level service during transport. They have the same capabilities as the helicopters. The nice side is we can travel anytime of the weather. So rain or snow, they can still respond. It's 3 people to a team. It's a critical care trained paramedic, a critical care flight nurse, and then a specialty trained EMT on the crew. So you always have 3 people that respond and they take the sickest of people. So for the most part, their role is to bring patients to the ICUs at the main campus since there isn't as much capacity in the ICU in Franklin anymore. So they do a lot of bringing patients either from the ICU that maybe need a little more specialized care than what they have in Franklin or from the ER down to the main campus at Bay State.
Great, important. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been an adventure.
Great. Well, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. I wish it would be automatic, but it seems to be an ongoing thing. You have to physically admit them to the room, so. I think they're all set up. Yeah, I got them. Okay. All right, next up is we have dispatch updates, but I think we'll keep that. We'll bring that down with the fire department if that's okay with the other commissioners. That's police department? And will you be talking will the police be talking to dispatch up?
We have Cindy here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes.
I can do it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. We can do it whatever order. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's see.
You don't want the hot seat? That's good. It's nice facing people.
You're a familiar face, but, and I know Mr. Jarvis from fire department, so, and Mr. Lanoy and I know each other from the sheriff's department. How are you?
Good, you.
So just to introduce myself to the two of you, I was recently promoted to dispatch supervisor. I've been dispatching for 21 years, 7 with Greenfield full-time. I'm a trained CTO or communications training officer for 17 years about, various other certifications. So hopefully I can fulfill the role. So far it's going okay. So recently we did have our dispatch office moved because the town has graciously given us upgrade to our offices. So we have moved into the roll call room, which I guess was your old meeting space. So that is more or less now completed. We have our workstations all now active. 911 was moved, so all that is completed. Don't have a time frame yet for the completion of the work. However, Lieutenant Dodge has advised me just tonight that he spoke to procurement and the bids for the job should go out mid-August. I guess the HVAC folks are coming tomorrow to check out the room and see what they can see. We were I'd just like to say that we were very grateful for IT and for Central Maintenance for helping us. They were actually in the office today as well. Ed from Central Maintenance and Jean from IT. Can't say enough good things. So they helped us out quite a bit. So now we're just going to wait for that and see what happens. With our staffing, we are finally fully staffed. We have, generally we can run with 9 dispatchers. We like to have a 10th dispatcher we call the vacation relief spot. Covers for vacations and for long-term absences. We are fully staffed again. We do have 1 out for maternity leave. She'll be out until almost the end of September. So we're running with 9 right now. We are very fortunate that we do have 2 per diems that work just here and there when they can. We are working on upstaffing with our per diems. It's been pretty difficult. If you talk to other agencies, I've talked to Amherst, I've talked to Shelburne Control, they're all having the same problem. It's very difficult to hire someone who's green and never had experience and train them as a per diem on a part-time basis because the training generally when you're full-time takes about 2 to 3 months. So that's pretty hard for someone who just wants to do it part-time and is doing training here and there. But we're still working on that. So that's been a challenge. We were very fortunate that we think that it's a good thing that we actually pay per diems top step dispatch pay. So it's a little bit of an incentive for them. But unfortunately, with our calendar and our staffing, every time someone takes a day off, it creates overtime. So we really can't avoid that. But we are improving with our overtime numbers, as I was saying to you in the last meeting. So for April, we had about 380 hours. May, we improved to 279. June, we had 148 hours. July, so far, we've had about 207 hours, which is about 26 or 27 shifts. But that's just, people taking vacations and just days off here and there. So we do, I'm happy to say or proud to say that we do have 2 dispatchers who are 2 of our newest dispatchers. They recently became certified communications training officers. They've both been here less than a year, but they took it upon themselves to ask for the training. And they completed that. So we're happy about that. We have completed all of our required continuing ed training for the last fiscal year. If you're not aware, we do have to do a certain number of hours for the state every year. They require a certain number of hours. One thing I am working on, and one of my goals is because of COVID, everything went to Zoom. Everything is a, online training or it's a pre-recorded training. It's so boring. You have to watch these videos. And so I am actually in contact with Tony Harrison from Public Safety Group out of South Carolina. He's a fantastic trainer and a great company. He's willing to come up in October and November for a day each month to do some training. So I've been in contact with Montague as well as Shelburne Control to get their dispatchers on board as well. And actually have been in contact with the transit center, the woman who coordinates they have a fantastic room over there, a meeting room. And so she's going to allow us to use the space over there for that purpose. So we're happy to have that space as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Dodge and I have been working on implementing, or we're about to implement, a QA program for us. It's not something we've had in the past. So quality assurance program, I took a training about 6 or 8 months ago to be certified to implement that program. So he and I are working on that. We think it would be great to give the dispatchers some feedback and certainly improve our response to calls with officers, with the general public, with firefighters. So hopefully we can get that going in the next few weeks and start QAing car calls. Yeah, I think that's more or less it for us. One of the other things I'd love to work on with Chief Strahan is because we feel sort of disconnected because we're not in the fire department. We don't see those folks on a regular basis. I actually ran into Dan Smith recently at the fairgrounds, who I've talked to many, many times over the last few years, and I had no idea who he was from seeing him. So we want to try to work on that because we don't get to see them so much, and that can cause a breakdown in communication sometimes, as I'm sure you can attest to. So we want to continue to work on that. And yeah. And one other thing that we have been working on, I think we may have touched on this the last meeting, but last July when Lieutenant Dodge had implemented that any dispatcher who was interested in the supervisor's position would do a month of the job. And so one of the things that he and I started doing was we're having meetings every 2 or 3 months with the department heads from the police department, fire department. The last one we invited AMR, and I think Sewell and Bellows actually came to our meeting. And it's just sort of a chance to, get out any issues we might have, talk about the good things that have happened. It's just good to catch up with everybody and just kind of make sure we're all on the same page. So we'd like to continue to do that as well. So, yeah. I don't know if you folks have any questions for me or.
I have one about the overtime.
Sure.
Is most of the overtime easy to fill, or do you have to force it?
I would say it's mostly been good. It's been okay. We have very few forces. We are very fortunate that we have 3 or 4 dispatchers who love overtime. Yeah. And are in a position where they don't have families or they don't have the responsibilities outside of, so that they can do that. Right. So we've been pretty fortunate in that respect. And again, we do have 2 per diems that have picked up shifts here and there. So they've definitely helped out as well.
What would be your ideal full-time staffing?
I would love to see another full-time dispatcher. So I would love to see us have 11. And I know that that's a conversation that Lieutenant Dodge and I have had. And I think that he's also spoken to the chief about it at length as well. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it would definitely help out with, again, our entire budget is payroll. So when we take a cut, it's a hit on us. So, and which I'm sure you guys are aware that happened recently, unfortunately. So
there's no way to predict it.
There really isn't. No, I mean, when April, when our numbers were really up, we had 1 dispatcher out for a very lengthy time. We also had another dispatcher out for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. She had a medical issue, so she had to be out. So we really were 7 dispatchers doing the work of what should be 10. And so that's why our numbers were that high that month.
I can only speak for me, but I would support additional person.
We definitely appreciate that.
I mean, this is, life and death.
Yeah, I try to stress to them that our dispatchers, that we really are the first responders.
That's right.
And our decisions in the beginning can make the difference. So we appreciate your support on that for sure.
No question, just a few comments. I really appreciate you talking about queuing calls. Yes. And I really appreciate you meeting with other departments and building the relationship. I mean, you're all in it together. So absolutely. I think those are really important things that you're doing and you're moving forward. So thank you for being here.
One of the issues with training for us is that everything happens on the Boston side of the state, and there's never any training offered here. And so usually it's easier because of traveling to do the Zoom or to do the pre-recorded stuff. But so we want to try to bring some stuff here. Absolutely. And there are actually 6 or 7 companies I could think of off the top of my head that do offer training. And the good thing about Tony Harrison is that he actually offers 3 free spots to the hosting agency. And so we can send 3 dispatchers for free, essentially, to his classes. So
That's great.
it's a bonus as well.
That's the guy from South Carolina.
Yes, Public Safety Group is his company. Yeah.
I'm glad you have a little bit of windows and sunshine.
It's definitely a plus. And it's funny that you say that because I was out washing the windows today. So no, we appreciate that as well. And it's actually a bigger space. So it's, we can kind of spread out a little more.
Good. I'm glad you're in there and things are moving.
Yes, they are. And we're very grateful for that.
Thanks for the.
It's been a long time coming for us. So
9 years. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, yeah, you're right. It's 9 years. I retired and they were talking about
it's
moving you
yeah.
guys and getting you into a different room. So just to put a date on it, I've been gone for 9 years, going on almost 10. So it's about time you got out of that sardine can they had you living in, and
we were pretty on top of each other in there.
yeah,
So it's
on top of it. It wasn't a word for it. So
well, and one of the issues with that room was that if we had a major, like we've had major storms recently, and to have that third dispatcher be able to come in and at least, help out with the phone lines. And, one of the issues we have right now is that we do have a partial third workstation. It is not equipped with 911. The state won't allow us to have a third workstation with our single dispatch office or agency rather. So I know that Lieutenant Dodge and I were having some conversation about that recently and potentially adding that. So hopefully having a third complete workstation, because again, during big storms, blizzards, it can definitely get scary in there. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Ready for the
Fire department?
Yeah, absolutely. Ready.
Chief Strahan, are you all set?
I am. I am. Letter from the chief. A letter? Just want to look at it.
We're going to take the vehicles later.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that later when we get to the commissioners. Thanks.
Cool. Hello, everybody. It's good to see everybody. We are in the process of hiring one firefighter. We did the initial interview process this past week, where there is 2 to 3 candidates going on to the next phase. We will notify the commission when the next phase is, if any commissioner wants to sit and observe. They'll get the combined grade from that and the interview, and a couple names will get forwarded to me for a final interview. I would ask that when commissioner sits with me during that interview. We like to have the commission involved from the process as a representative from the communities to make sure that, that you guys are comfortable. So when you get a name, we'll be able to vote on that name to send to the mayor. In addition to that, I have signed a contract with a firm to do our captain's assessment. It is a combination of a written examination and an assessment center. It will be conducted sometime around October and November, and that is for the promotion of one captain's position at this time. Once that list is established, it'll be good in-house for 2 years. Any questions about those 2 items?
When do you think the interview for the new hire will take place? Just a rough couple weeks or?
So the skill part of their process that they're going to go through now was scheduled for the 31st. That's actually on my agenda to talk about. I'll talk about it now. Lori Cowan, we know her as Lori Brooks, but her married name now is Lori Cowan. Last day is on Monday. And we are having
Boss.
we are having an open house for her at the firehouse from 12 to 2. Anybody is welcome.
When is it?
Monday.
Monday?
Monday.
Okay, great.
Little background about Lori. She has been with the city since she was 16 years old. She has been at the fire department longer than anybody else. And so we are very happy that she is going to retire, but very sad to see her go as well. She has been a great asset for the fire department and me personally for many, many, many years. And so as happy as I am for her, it's going to be a bittersweet day for her. We have hired her replacement, Shannon. I butcher her last name, so I'm not even going to try. But she was worked at HR, and we ended up getting her to come over to the fire department, which is great because she's a great replacement for Lori and fits very well at the fire department, and so far is doing a fabulous job. So we welcome her. The last week and a half, we've been inundated with storms, really challenging across the board. I want to commend our public safety agencies, our police, fire, ambulance, and especially our DPW, who have stayed on top of it. Marlo, the head of the DPW, and Deputy Gordon and others had many conversations on Friday night as the water was starting to rise everywhere in town. And there's some significant damage. So we're in the process of doing a damage assessment for the storm, specifically with our DPW, with blown culverts and blown roads and stuff like that. And I think between that storm and the storm before, with the damage not only that we had, but the rest of Western Mass have, I'm hoping that we're going to have enough to qualify for a federal declaration. If not, I've been in contact with our state representatives, our state senators, and perhaps there'll be a method to go for special legislation to accommodate some of the costs that the damage has occurred. We were lucky the first storm, the damage was relatively minor. The second storm, not so much. We have some big issues. Newell Pond Road, which has two houses on it, is a town culvert. The culvert completely washed away. They have to immediately replace that, plus many sections of road throughout the town. But everybody did what they always do. They handled it. And they handle it with grace and dignity. And, now we're in the recovery phase. I'm concerned because the pattern that we are seeing with the trains of storms that are coming through the region is a repeat of the 30s, specifically 38. And after all the storms all summer, we had the Long Island Express that came up and changed the landscape of our region specifically. So if we get a hurricane or a tropical storm within the next 1 or 2 months with the ground saturated, we're going to be potentially looking at big problems. I don't want to be that guy, but I am the emergency management director and I'm paid to be that guy. Really good. So we need to watch the weather closely because we could have some significant issues coming forward. We are in shift gears. We are doing some new mandatory training for Asher, which is the active shooter. And we now have a new document. It's NFPA, I think it's 3000, which is actually the first time NFPA document is cross jurisdictions. So it applies to fire, police, and ambulance, and basically talks about a dramatic change in the way that active shooter responses are handled from a first response level. The days of police officers going in and clearing the building and making sure everything is safe before medical help goes in to start treating the injuries are different. That's challenging, right? It's not only a change of pace for us, but it's a change of pace for law enforcement. And it's something that we have to have really honest and open discussions about how we are going to handle it. The numbers for active shooters and mass killings are out of control in this country. The numbers sitting through this training, it was really eye-opening, and the amount of and the levels of these events. And so we, the fire department, need to do a better job at preparing for, okay, what is this going to look like if we have this? And are we prepared to go down, we're not going into what we consider the hot zone where there's an active shooting going on, but they're teaching responders that if you are properly equipped and you have a rescue task force, which is made up of police, fire, EMS, that you're going in right behind the first crews and you're going in getting the patients out. And that's making the difference of life and death for people bleeding out. So it's a big change. It's something that I haven't fully embraced. I'm sure the police department is nervous about that as well. But it's something that we need to talk about with that though, I need to equip my people. Because the requirement is that we have to get our people protected. And never in my day, even though we have a small cache of it now, never in my day did I ever think we were putting firefighters in ballistic vests. I just wouldn't have envisioned it, but we are required now to have that. We'll be working with closely with our partner agencies. One of the mandates that comes with this is that we have to do pre-planning, and we have to know exactly what the rules are going to be, how we're going to handle it as a community. The sheriff's office does a great job of doing their thing, but as a community, we are going to be tasked as the unified command, and we need to work on that. So the training's interesting. It's mandatory for every single firefighter now. And they're in the process of this week getting that training done. The station's moving well. The interior walls are up in the station. A lot of the electrical has been run. The vents, a lot of the large air exchange has been put in. So we're moving right along with the station. If you remember, I had to go to city council last year, and we anticipated going over 100,000 over budget, overtime and expenditures that we didn't foresee. We got a transfer by city council. I'm happy to report that number was under 50K. So we wouldn't be using the whole 100K that we asked for. The new ambulance, we have found a demo unit that will be available hopefully by August of next year, which will save a year off of build, but more importantly, we will save off the overall cost significantly over ordering a new ambulance that we were planning on. So that's exciting. Fire prevention is inundated with the amount of work, and it's almost getting to the point where it is beyond one person. So we are farming out a lot of the prevention work through overtime, just to try to keep up with the demand in that office. We really need to look at getting a second inspector. So, and then lastly, our new computer program has gone into effect. There's multiple facets, and I'm not going to go into it, but it does just about everything that we need to do in the firehouse for reporting under one software program. One of the aspects that I have authorized for the purchase is called the Community Connect. And so one of our jobs required by ISO and NFPA is to go out and pre-plan all our high-risk buildings and whatnot. This new program allows us to give any business in town the opportunity to log into their own profile and keep contact information up to date, any pertinent information that they have, and put it back on the building owners to keep it up to date themselves, and they'll have a code to get in and they can update, which is going to be fantastic. But what this program does is, I will bring this up, all our computer devices have now all the data that we need. I'm sorry, I can't show it at home, but so this one was a ambulance request at Charlene Manor, and it has not only our dispatch time, but any notes that our dispatchers put in, we have right on the computers as they're going. It shows them the quickest route. It maps it. It also has overlays of our assessors data. So any assessor's data that is pertinent to the building, which including construction type, year built, everything that's important can be overlaid on that. Hydrant sizes, water main sizes is on that. We can actually talk back to the system where you can actually let units know that they're on the air. Every truck while responding is GPSed. So we know where our trucks are, and we'll have the capability of seeing where they are and responding accordingly. It maps it. There's just a lot of capabilities of it. So we're thrilled with the system. It's, as Eddie knows, it's daunting going to a new computer program, but hopefully this is going to be the last one for a very long time because I'm sick of building them. So.
Is that you using an app? Is there an app attached?
Yeah, that's the app that I just showed you, but all our trucks have that in there. The other capabilities, there's vast capabilities, but like when we do inspections and permits, we can actually right on site, have somebody sign the permit and email it. So we're trying to get away from paper altogether. Eventually, our scheduling will be on there. There's a bunch of capabilities. Our asset tracking is on there now. So every piece of equipment on every piece of truck is accounted for. And so you want to know where a specific generator is, you look up the generator number and you can find it. And if you move it to another truck, it moves it. And we track all the maintenance with it and all the data. So our records are pretty firm.
That's excellent.
Yep. It's a good program. It's costly, but
Yeah.
it does what we need it to do.
It'll pay off.
And that's what I have.
Any comments?
I have a few questions. Who's involved with the pre-planning when you talked about pre-planning with the ASSER? You had mentioned pre-planning. Is that multiple group of different people? What's your thoughts on that?
So we have met with the sheriff's office is the lead people that met with the schools on that.
Sheriff and the state.
Sheriffs and the state police have met. We had some meetings with the schools on that, but that's specifically focused on schools. What we're finding with the trend with mass shootings is it's not schools, right? Yes, we have mass shootings in schools. The latest trend within the last couple of years, it's at the workplace. It's a public gathering. It's other venues besides just schools. And so I haven't had a chance to talk with Chief Haig about this yet, as I just took the training the other day and I've gotten other trainings on it. So this is more specifically going to be geared towards, police and fire and EMS, the core agencies. Obviously, other partners will be involved with that. But just like, simple things like what are the common expectations across the agencies and just, how are we going to communicate? What's the role of EMS? What's the role of fire in this? What is the expectation of the basic patrolman that arrives on scene with fire coming behind it? How are we gonna talk? How are we gonna interact? And it's stuff that, according to the training that I've just gone through, that is not only encouraged to do, but it's mandated to do. So, like I said, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to Chief Haig about this yet, but it's on the agenda to start talking about.
Thank you. Go ahead. No, absolutely. I have one other
I
after
just
you.
wanted to, this is such a tough topic. We have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard a statistic in the past month, 2 a day in the country someplace. Could be higher than that. So I think in terms of citizen education and citizen training, so everybody that works for us, we have to train. What I'm interested in doing is supporting whatever efforts all of the chiefs and stakeholders here want to bring forward with respect to training citizens, first educating citizens. One of the things that scares me about kind of things that, you hear in a conversation, it happened somewhere else. That's not a safe way to think. It's sad to talk about something bad happening in your community, but we have to. And so citizen education is something we can do as officials, stakeholders, and agencies, and we have to pay for that. They don't know the difference between hard and soft targets. They don't know unless they read it what the trends are. And, why would they? Could they pay all of us to take care of them? But the other thing that I think is really hard but necessary is, and I was at the table way back when Andy Bisdell came to the sheriff's office and said, can you help us with school safety? Training people in a school, in an agency, in a business about what the trends are, what the tactical approaches are, and how to handle it. Because if we don't do that, we can have all the certifications and training on our side, but those innocent people who are targets are going to panic. And they're going to panic anyway, because that's human nature. But if we are in a position to fund and support trainings for them, I think we have to do it. And I know that adds to the budget, and I know that adds to the time that everybody here spends. But I just think it's an important item for us to keep in the front burner and not the back burner. Because at the end of the day, you know, I pray it never happens to anybody. But we have to be prepared for what could happen. And that's just a sad reality. So thank you for the presentation on this, and I look forward to doing what we can do as a commission. We can't allocate money, but we can certainly speak in favor of it.
Just one last quick question.
Yes, sir.
The captain promotion, what is the Public Safety Commission's involvement in that?
You're welcome to participate and observe every step of the way. It is an independent evaluation.
Okay.
So they have their own guidelines, their own grading. They've never been challenged in a promotion. And they work with myself, and they go off of the policy that's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
So they get that, and they work in conjunction with what's listed in the collective bargaining agreement policy. It's not a policy, it's,
Rules.
yeah. All right. It's what's been agreed to by the city and the firefighters union and how promotions work.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you for all the updates.
Just one comment. Dave always forgets me. Can we say that? Dave left, I guess, instead of his running. It seems like everything takes 10s. 10 years for dispatch, 10 years for new software. Because I remember the headache of pulling my hair out and trying to get you all those answers before it was a headache. So that was 10 years ago too. And 10 years ago, I sat in on a seminar with the FBI, ATF, state police, Connecticut State Police, local state police at Greenfield Academy about joint unified command for mass shootings. So, and that was 10 years ago. I think I was just brand new deputy chief or just in the last years of my as a captain. So that was about, so everything takes 10 years, I guess. So we'll start planning for a 10-year schedule, I guess, instead of a 4-year schedule.
You know, we focus a lot on the mass shooting part of it. Vehicle can be just as deadly, and that's another, you know, so they're focusing on the term now, mass killings, and so it's strange new world we live in, but so that's what I have. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I guarantee you I'll be a little bit quicker for you.
I might not be quicker.
I've been here 10 years.
I'm going to negotiate the amount of slides after this meeting.
You are kidding.
Text me and let me know how it goes. So I'm going to do the easy part tonight. We've obviously been going through a hiring process. The Public Safety Commission participated in our process and our promotional process. So tonight, I'm able to introduce at least 2 new officers. We're going to continue on with the hiring process, but we have Josh Barber and Brandon Garvey here. They're the nice dressed officers that we have as opposed to the rest of us. But if you want to just come forward, introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about yourself and the people. But
Cheers up.
the great part about both of these officers is they were already certified. They were waived by MPTC, so they didn't have to go through a full-time academy because they were already certified and trained. So very quick train ups for us. But if you just want to say a couple quick things and we can get you out of here so you can go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Josh Barber. I do recognize a couple faces. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here in Greenfield. I feel like it's a great move, and I'm excited to start this new chapter in my career in law enforcement. I've only been doing this for a few years. I started out part-time in Leverett, moved to a full-time spot in Irving, and now I'm blessed to be here. Before that, I worked in the fire service, tenured paramedic, decided to shift gears and join law enforcement.
We did a psych round. Barely passed.
Okay.
I don't want to have to break things up tonight.
Okay, we can all get along. But yeah, just really excited to be here and really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name's Brandon Garvey. A few of the faces again too familiar from before during the interview process. I was an officer at Holyoke Community College. I live local to the area. Just bought a house 2 years ago and have been renovating it nonstop for the past 2 years, which has a funeral home attached to the back, which we've also been renovating for apartments. Before that, I lived in Amherst, but pretty much for the most part, I've been at Holyoke and Amherst, and was a dispatcher before I became an officer at the Bridge Academy. So I'm really excited to start here, really excited to get moving, really excited to work with all the new people and explore the town. I appreciate you letting me do that.
Welcome to both of you to Greenfield, and we appreciate what you're being part of the team here and what you're going to do and represent.
You guys are free.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Take it easy. I know you should have.
Thank you.
We're going to continue on. We still have a couple openings, one of which we're getting a little creative on. It's going to be a bolster to our CRO, CSO partnership. So we're going to be working on that as well as soon as we can get either people that are Bridge certified, Academy certified, or we might need to put the last couple through the Academy. So we're kind of in that limbo right now. I'm not sure where we are in that. Lieutenant Dodge has been overseeing the process through. So if you have any questions for that, maybe afterwards, he might be able to let you know where we are on those folks. We have 2 in the Academy right now. As you know, I think they're coming out in September. So hopefully there'll be a quicker train up, but neither one of them had any experience going in. So there'll be a little bit green coming out and have to go through obviously the full FTO program. The second part tonight is the other reason I'm here, and I want to thank the commission and all the people that helped us with this process. We had a representative from the mayor's office that oversaw the whole process to make sure things were handled properly, and was able to report to the mayor if there were any issues on any appeals type of thing. They weren't a participant member, but they were an observer for all the levels. So I want to thank her office for allowing that. We had outside agencies coming in to interview these folks. And during the process, I had started this, I don't even know how long ago, years ago, trying to get the 3rd lieutenant back. And with the amount of kind of checks and balances that we're now required to make, we really needed to make that position. So I pitched this to the mayor. I pitched this to the last mayor and continue to pitch it to this mayor. And with body cameras and cruiser cameras and the records, and with the transition that we're having now with records, and I felt it appropriate that this would be the time to make that move, and she agreed. So we didn't bring it up because it was actually agreed to during the middle of the deliberation process. So we didn't want anybody being tainted, anybody, concerned about where the positions were. So we didn't announce it till the whole process was done and the lists were certified. And the appeal process period was over before we made the decision. So tonight I'm here to introduce our 2 lieutenant candidates that hopefully you will support and send to the mayor with your approval. And that's Lieutenant Chris Green, well, soon to be Lieutenant Chris Green. He's been our detective sergeant and our special operations sergeant. He's been with the Greenfield PD for a long time. And Sergeant Jason Haskins, who will be the 2nd lieutenant candidate, who has been with the department, I think 11 or 12 years now, 15 years. I've been here 10 now, I guess. So I guess I'm out on the change. But he's done a whole lot of our other field training programs and medical and that type of program. So he's our 2nd. They both were in the top 3 as our policy states. I don't know who's number 1. I don't know who number 3 is. So DC and I get together. We get all the information, all their projects, and we get to decide who those final 2 are. And that was our decision for those 2. You guys want to add anything, or?
Yeah, you should say.
Sit there silently. If we want to make Chris Green turn red, which is very easy. But yeah, come on up, Jay. You can just say a couple things if you want, then we'll move right on.
Oh, Jesus.
Somebody wants to sit next to me.
Pull it up. Don't be shy.
First.
Oh, thank you. Chris Green. As some of you know, I started in corrections and came to the police side. Been with Greenfield for over 29 years now. Held many titles. Currently, I'm a sergeant of the specialty units. Very excited. It's I don't know. We're back and it just seems like a good time right now for us and going forward. I'm excited to work with the current lieutenant and even the new sergeants, develop them into the future of our place too. So I don't see, it looks very bright right now for our future at Greenfield Police, and I'm excited to get things going and keep on trucking.
Keep it on. Yeah, Jason Haskins. So I'm also a sergeant on the day shift. And like the chief said, I handle like our first responder CPR stuff. I handle the FTO program, a couple other minor instructor stuff as well. On the side, I do our traffic safety things. Like Chris said, it's really exciting for us. We appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity, especially that we're here and getting to work with these guys. And this is a really good, it's a big change for our department. So it's really exciting. And to be back on where we're full staff and getting to where we're going is awesome. So we really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. I just want to say that I want to thank Lieutenant Dodge for everything he's put into this. It's been a lot of time. I've been working with him on this and up at the police department and sat and watched all the interviews, participated in certain things that public safety can participate in. And he's put a lot of time and thought into this. And I just want to I appreciate what he has done for Greenfield to move us to this next step, and just to congratulate the two of you. I've worked with the two of you, and I've spent time with you, and I'm excited for your new position, and just congratulations and thank you, Lieutenant Dodge. Appreciate it.
You're good.
Thank you, guys.
Don't look nearly as sharp as the other two guys, but I guess they've been around. And with that, because we had the second lieutenant, we had to promote three sergeants. I'm really excited about this. This was exceptionally difficult. I'm going to be honest with you. We had a lot of good candidates at that level. It was a tough decision. It really was. Some of it was easy and enjoyable. Some of it was very difficult because everybody had different qualities and everybody had, the things that they bring to the department. So it's easy to see these three people be sergeants. It was difficult for everybody to go through it because everybody has something else to give. And but today with us, we have two out of the three, but the Detective Jay Batinsky, who's been with the task force now for the last several years, he is moving up to sergeant. And as I said, all three of these folks came in at, who knows, 1, 2, or 3, but they were the top three. So, and there was no reason to go any farther. Detective Justin Pernson, who's not with us today, planned vacation. He's with his family up in Maine. He would have come down if we asked him to, but I obviously I didn't want to interrupt his vacation. But Justin's been a detective with us for a while. He was actually, Jay and Justin were my first hires when I came here 10 years ago. So I think Justin's the badge behind me. So these guys have been with me for a while. And one of our more senior officers, it was Officer Emily Rowell, and she's here with us today. So come on up, Emily. And Emily has been one of our strongest FTO trainers that we've had. We kind of say that if you can't get by, if she can't train you and Justin can't train him, then you just don't belong here. She's phenomenal. Yeah, no pressure at all. But she's been on the midnight shift for a majority of her career. But when you have somebody there that you feel very confident and comfortable with, it's a good thing to have. She's been in OIC for us countless times, especially on that shift when we were running short. And we're really excited that she has gone through the process and been recommended. So do you want to say anything real quick? So, no, you do.
I'd love to. No, thank you guys. Like you said, it was a long process. Happy to be here. Like you said, I've been with the drug unit now for 3 years. So I really have been I did a lot of stuff with the department before, and now I've been attached to the DA's office for a while. So it'll be nice to come back and get to know everybody. There's a lot of new faces that I haven't had the opportunity to work with. So get them all, and we'll keep going.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To the new position.
And hi, I'm Emily. I've been with the department just over 11 years now and trained probably Jay and Justin in some part and everybody since then, which with all the more recent over the past few years, all the retirements and promotions and stuff like that. We have a really great group of people that are working with us. All the command staff is really great. So I'm looking forward to this next step. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you. And I just want to make a comment about just really for the public, because in the business, we all understand how many hats you have to put on people's heads when you don't have tons of staff. And so as agencies are looked at, right? All of the things that every agency has to comply with apply no matter how big or small you are. And so Greenfield's a small city, and so we have a very big mixture of urban, sadly to say, drugs are everywhere, and rural, which is geography, but all of the standards and regulations which never go away. They get bigger, they get bigger, they get bigger. And I think it's so important for us to tell the public that, because they want bang for their buck and they want service and they deserve that. We want to give it to the full measure. Resources are things that we compete for, and sometimes it's, like a boxing match, which you don't like. And I don't like that either, because at the end of the day, and I can appreciate, Chris Green was here in '94 when I showed up to run the jail. I don't think we had many staff, Chris, did we, back in those days? No. And we had regulations and standards and compliance issues. And all those things are necessary for transparency, quality employees. So I've heard everybody here to talk about, I do this and I do this and I do this and I do this, but you're also a police officer. So, I just want to put that out there. If I have a comment that is constructively critical, I'll make it. But I want to say, the things that are important for people to know. I think we do a good job. I think you all do a good job. And, I welcome the diversity too of folks that are doing more than one job or coming from dispatch and understanding really what it's like to be a dispatcher or fire service. I don't want to get into that one, but, fire service over there. I'm sorry. Yeah. Those are things that give you a background. Chris Green was a CO when I came to Franklin. And so that's very rich because it gives you exposure. You're in the DA's office for a while, you're doing stuff over there. You're working with people from another agency. That's all important. So, this is, and I have to explain, by the way, I did assume the chairmanship, but I was out last month. And then I was away and on vacation, so I asked Dave to run this meeting just for continuity. But we all talk to each other and, to the extent we can with, we don't violate the open meeting law, but getting the stuff that we have to get to read, to understand. Dave was the designee for your promotions, and I think this is great. And I know you can't promote everybody that deserves to be promoted in any given time. It takes a long time to get promoted, and I appreciate that. And so I just want to say as chair that I appreciate you. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, I'll go back to the lieutenants. I had the privilege of sitting on the lieutenant's part of it. And I'm sure the sergeants was equally as hard. Greenfield is blessed with a lot of very talented, very smart, very caring individuals. And they should be lucky that we have the women and men working for us, that we have working for us and willing to step up. I'm sure the sergeant's exam was just as hard to choose 2 or 3 to fill those vacancies as it was for the lieutenants. I was very impressed with what everybody brought to the table, and Greenfield should consider themselves very lucky. That's it.
So I'll just echo the same thing about Lieutenant Dodge putting this all together for the sergeants. It's a lot of work. I was there for the couple days, the hours, all the interviews. And I was very pleased the process and procedures that the police department have were followed. I'm a stickler. I read everything that the deputy sends me, even if it consists of 799 pages. But I read it all and I studied it, and they did a great job. And I was impressed with the other departments around Franklin County that came in and participated in the interview process and graded these sergeants and the lieutenants. I thought that was a great part of it, getting some outside folks that maybe didn't know them and just graded them.
That was hard to
scratch.
Find people that don't know them. Yeah, this job that long.
Yeah. And I did fill in on the sergeant's interview board because one officer couldn't make it that day, so I had a chance to listen to all the folks speak. But again, I appreciate it. It's a long process, and I thank again Lieutenant Dodge for putting it all together. So thank you and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to be doing the swearing in on the 7th. We'll make sure we get that to you folks, because it'll be a little bit smaller with family and friends because we're paying for it. But obviously we want all of you there to. Thank you. And we'll get you those details as soon as they're ironed out. But we'll have the swearing in that night, get the badges and all that done all on one shot, as well as some of our awards that we have to do for accreditation anyway. So we'll do it all at once. With that means that we have other transition happening. We're going to have, 2 of the people promoted were detectives. So we're going to have to name a couple more detectives, which is good. It keeps the department changing all the time. We're going to be naming another CRO person. So things are going to change for us. And then in a couple of years, they're going to change again. We probably have about a 13-month window right now, and then we're going to be going through this all over. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing for a change and to keep people excited about work. Yeah, that's kind of the update that I had for you. We didn't give you anything else really because we knew we were going to be doing this piece. I know Bill put together the presentation that, you all wanted to talk about in regard to the vehicles, our vehicle policies and that kind of stuff. So he did put those together. But I don't really have anything else unless you have questions for me.
No, thank you for all the time and everything. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you too. Yes, thank you for being here.
Just one thing on the dispatch model is it's going to be interesting, but it was kind of funny to hear some of the older officers going back into the old roll call room. So it's a little sad now that they have no windows. Now they know how they feel. So
yeah,
it's just fair. Yeah.
And your lobby is about 2 by 2. You can fit 1.2 people in there. But that's going to be and an intercom.
Think of another project we need. We want tonight, right? Capital.
Anyway, so unless you have anything else for us.
I think we're good.
I'm good. I'm good.
Chief, do you want to rejoin us for this conversation?
Sure.
So I know that you both have. So I'll start from the beginning. If you don't mind. I'll start from the beginning. I asked both departments to put together information with respect to driver safety and also reporting accidents. Our community isn't perfect. Departments aren't perfect. Things happen. Things have happened in the past. I know we've improved on the processes and procedures. We do that all the time, improvements. But I think this is good knowledge for the public to understand what the departments do for training and what we do if something happens and there are accidents. And also I wanted to talk a little bit about reporting the information back to the Public Safety Commission. So I'm going to let you, I think you both have good information to share with us. You can draw straws.
We always volunteer.
He's pointing at you, Deputy.
Presentation. So. Are we gonna go out and get coffee?
No, I was gonna lock myself in my basement for the next 4 days just to get the minutes done.
However, I did send you about 700 pages of information.
I noticed that.
Yeah. So I gave you all of the raw, the data for the June, if you noticed that, and I gave you the raw data for the policies and the training that the officers attend. Every officer from part-time to full-time now go through a 40-hour EVOC training, emergency vehicle operation course. They do that in the MPTC. There's about 149 pages of what they go through, what they have to know. So to make a short night, I would just refer you back to that. Anybody in
Whiting Bridge.
Yeah. So anybody in the internet land can Google MPTC EVOC and be able to get the same standards. So it's all out there in public of what they get trained in. As the officer goes through their tour of duty, if they were to get into an accident, our policy says that. Hold on a minute.
I let him go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I waved him.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Thank you.
Something I have to go to work.
So if they get into an accident, our policy dictates that a superior officer will investigate that accident, no matter how small. If they bump into something, a superior officer has to investigate. If it deals with criminal matters or potential criminal matters, the district attorney's office is contacted directly. We have direct contact with the ADA over there. And then they send the state police and their team comes out and their evidence team. Just like if you were to have a fatal accident, they take over. Same thing with ours. So if we have any type of criminal action, then they would take that. Our officers, our supervisors are mandated to document every single accident that we have in our internal affairs module, so that they're kept track of and numbered. And if there's a trend, that we can watch the trends there with certain officers. All of our cruisers have GPSs in them, and they also have video camera systems that are in them. So every accident, the camera system is reviewed. It's done both active and passive. So even if the camera system is not actually recording at the time, it's passively recording all the time, and all the officers know that. And we can go back to, I believe, 48 hours of patrol time and on passive recording before it loops over into a different recording. In the package that I gave you the policy for traffic collisions on how we investigate all traffic collisions, but whether it's us or somebody else, it's all investigated the same way. It's just who does the investigation. An officer won't investigate an officer. If I get into a car accident as a deputy chief, the chief has to investigate it, and the chief gets into an accident, automatically goes to state police for investigation. No matter how slight. I also gave you the policy for the in-vehicle recording, so you can see that in there has the passive video. I have the recording, the policy and procedure for police vehicle operations, so you can see what is a priority 1, 2, and 3 call, and in the internal affairs document, so you can see how our internal affairs go. If an officer is found to be at fault, no matter how slight, they are sent to remedial driver's education through our insurance company, MIIA. They have 2 types of training. They have a simulator training, and then they have an emergency EVOC course themselves. So we usually look at the type of accident that they had, and we try to decide what is the better for them and what is offered at the time. Sometimes in the middle of the winter, they might not have EVOC, but they'll have a simulator training. And then we send our officers as soon as possible to those trainings. They also get sent to those trainings as in-service. So not only if they had an accident, but just in general, we send our officers to these the updated trainings so they can have practice on that.
We were trying to keep that to every other year. We'd send half the officers and then half the officers. And we've had such transition that a lot of them had it in the academy and then they came out. So we stagger it. So we still, every time that Maya offers us that trailer, I mean, if you've been at the DPW yard, like it would be over there. And we try to send the officers that have never been to it first. And then anybody that had an issue, they're going to it automatically. So.
And that simulator training is department specific. So if the fire department goes, they drive big fire trucks. Our police officers drive police cars. DPW does DPW trucks.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it can make you busy because it's, it's realistic. So those 360.
Again, thank you. There's so many layers. And again, I think the average citizen, maybe they're not aware of things like you just talked about. So many layers of policy that are important. They're up to date, they're in place. I try to read a lot of it. I didn't get through everything.
You will.
Thank you. But the EVAR stuff,
Yeah.
it's rigorous. And the rules are the rules with regard to interagency stuff. So, anything that borders on criminal, the state police get it. And, so we're not in a position to do anything with it.
And when the state police have it, unfortunately, we don't dictate the timeline.
True.
We don't dictate the investigation.
Or the timeline. So
we don't have any call on it whatsoever. We're totally hands off.
I will say our latest kind of two that we had some major damage done to our cars. Fortunately, we had the cruiser cameras because our vehicles were both struck by somebody else without the officers being at fault. But if you don't have that, but we did see on Facebook, here it is, Greenfield PD crashing their cars again. And fortunately, it wasn't that way, but at least we had the cruiser cameras this time, so we were able to see it. And we also had one that was our fault. And that was a while back, and we were able to use the cruiser camera. It was an intersection, and the officers, because at the time it was Deputy Chief Williams who was here, so doing the investigation, and they talked to 6 or 7 people that all said the other car ran the red light. And then we went to the cruiser camera, and it wasn't that person. So you inherently can't trust eyewitnesses sometimes either in situations like that, So it was good on both occasions, it's protected the public because the woman that was in the accident wouldn't have gotten her car fixed by us, or any medical bills if she had gotten hurt, and so it works both ways, but I say it helps far more than anything. So we haven't had any officers complaining whatsoever about having those cruiser cameras.
It should be noted that if our officers do break a rule, regulation, or law, they are given a citation just like any other operator.
That happened in that case.
It's also, I think it's worth mentioning for the public is that since Deputy Chief took his role as Deputy Chief, we are increasing significantly our QA, Cindy used the term earlier, quality assurance stuff. We are looking at an entire list of things on a daily basis. And we do have in our policies where we can randomly sample these camera systems. We can go back in and see. We have had training. We had one training a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that pointed out some of our weaknesses as it relates to driving. And there were some. And quite honestly, I think maybe they weren't really even aware of it until it's displayed on a big screen.
Because our system does record your speed.
Yeah.
They record your speed.
Metadata on it, it's how fast you're going. And I think, when you're responding certainly to a high intensity call, the adrenaline's going, you're just going. Well, when you get 5 minutes and it's shown to you and you're seeing you're going 75 miles an hour on Coleraine Road, you didn't realize that. So I think that was a perspective gainer for a lot of our officers. And then again, we've been on top of the QA. And I think with the advent of 3 lieutenants, that's only going to get better because now more people have time to sort of self-monitor our work. And the cameras are absolutely going to.
We've had citizens that have named cars.
Oh, yeah.
Citizens have said that car driving here, and we've been able to go GPS it, find out who the officer is, run the passive, and find out if it was or wasn't. And I'll tell you, so far it's been the wasn't, which is good. You got to make them aware though, because even in certain places, when you got road construction, you're doing 30 miles on a 30 mile, even as a cruiser, looks a little fast for people. So it's bringing them that awareness, and that's what the sergeants do at that sergeant level. And the lieutenants go in and make sure the sergeants are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they have a little bit more leeway with what they're looking at. So it's like you find out your kind of issue people really fast. And address the issues really fast. And that's what that camera system has done for us. And I think we've done a really good job. And some of the sergeants have, had, Lieutenant Dodge on them. And because we got to make sure this happens, you know? So, and I think that's grown. So we don't have that issue right now. We got 3 new sergeants coming that are going to go through some learning curves too, but that's one of our focuses. So we're having a mandatory staff meeting the day after they're sworn in that morning to go over what their expectations are, and it's going to happen. So I think that's all that third lieutenant's going to be unfortunately hit with for a while is doing that Q&A. We're going to break out the lieutenants into 3 different categories to make sure we're covering everything and not missing things. And then we're going to cross train them so that when people aren't there, we have somebody still doing it. And we're going to work that way as a team.
With the 3 lieutenants, you should have brought this up earlier. We're actually going to follow more of the fire department's model, where they treat their department like an incident command structure. And then they have an operations chiefs, and they have logistics and planning and finance, and then everything is broken up onto those curtains. It's kind of hard to explain, but we're going to follow that model and treat the department like it's a big incident. And then each lieutenant will have their area of responsibility, but everybody's going to be cross-trained and we're going to be mission orientated. It's not going to be my area versus your area. The department is going to go into a mission-based, policy-based format. So we're going to be looking at policy and procedures more closely. We're going to be looking at what the missions are. We're going to get rid of the egos. We're going to work as a team. And like he said, almost every other word out of my mouth is quality assurance, quality assurance. And it's not just the third lieutenant's job. It's everybody's job, from the dispatcher to the patrol officers, to the supervisors, to civilians. If somebody sees a problem, we address it. Everybody's out there looking for the problem.
I have a few questions, but I think they could be general to both departments. So we can let Chief pass out his information, and then we'll go back to you if other folks have questions.
This is the department policy on vehicle accidents within our department. It's real simple. Any property damage to either a fire truck or an accident at all is immediately reported to the police, and then I get notification of the accident. We have reports that they have to fill out in-house, a fire report plus an accident report, plus an injury report. God forbid somebody's injured. Anybody that has an injury or the threat of an injury, we require an ambulance to come and do an evaluation and get a signature. So not only if they're injured, but if there's the possibility that they're injured, including, God forbid, a civilian. It spells out the responsibilities of the officers that are in charge of the shift, and then how the accidents get investigated. For us, it's pretty simple. We turn everything over to law enforcement. If it's a significant incident where we have a large property loss, we have people injured or whatever, typically I would ask Chief Haig to take it to the next level and go to the district attorney's office and have either them or the state police investigate as well. If it's a big truck, we'll have the truck team come in and do the investigation. And it's nothing to do with capability of Greenfield Police. They do a great job, but with it being significant, we want to make sure that there's not the image of any type of
The district attorney also requires now, there's a policy for them that anything that potentially could have life-altering or life-ending injuries, they want to be notified to investigate from the start. It used to be you did your investigation, and then a couple of days later, someone passes in the hospital, and then you let them know. Now they want to know at the time of the accident, which sometimes you don't know. I mean, we had somebody sign off saying they felt they were fine, and ended up passing a couple of days later. It was like, but, that wasn't anything, they went to the hospital and still signed their way out. So it wasn't anything that we did or the fire department did, but the DAs, wanted to know why we reported it. I said, because the hospitals let them walk out the door. They walked in the door. It was a minor thing. But so anything on that, we lean towards the side of caution. We contact the ADA, and if they want it, they get it. If they don't want it because they don't feel it's to that level, then we're going to investigate it.
So what's the process if somebody just is a repeat offender? Is there an officer or a firefighter gets into an accident? 6 months later, maybe 8 months later, they get into another accident.
Yeah.
How does insurance get involved and what is the process? I mean, obviously you know about it, but can you talk us through your thoughts on that?
One of the issues, first of all, is we're self-insured. But we're paying for most of our own accidents out of our own funds. So the insurance company doesn't necessarily, it's not the same type of insurance as you or I have on our personal vehicles. If it's a major, yeah, we're going to have to go to the insurance. But when it's a small enough accident, they're not inclined to help you out with that because your insurance rate's going to go up. So typically, if it's a smaller accident, because we're self-insured, we'll try to pay as much as we can. Cruisers tend to be a little less expensive than a fire truck gets damaged. It just nature of the vehicle, so a lot of our minor scrapes, we tend to pay on our own, but they're all done the same way. They're all handled the same way. They're all in the IA, and then we pay them and the rate doesn't go up. In major accidents, yes. I mean, the two that we had recently, yeah, we had to go to insurance because, the side of the cruisers were caved in. Those we're not going to fix, especially when it's somebody else's issue because then it's their insurance. But if it's our own, we tend to pay most of our minor ones. Knock on wood, we don't have a lot of them, that are like that. But that's the insurance side for us. Anything major, like I said, you're going to be calling in somebody else anyway.
Yes. Your question was, what if you have a repetitive officer or firefighter getting into an accident?
Yeah, I mean, nipping it in the butt when it's something small,
that's why we send it.
Doesn't lead to something big. So that's what I'm talking about.
That's why they go right away to that minor. If they get into anything, they're going for remedial regardless.
So everybody, regardless of the accident, they're going.
If it's theirs, if it's their at fault, they're going to go to one of those trainings that Bill talked about. We look at whoever had one and they're going. It's progressive discipline if they're repeat offenders. What's the offense? Like, are we talking just not paying attention all the time and backing into posts when they're parking the cruiser? Because we got to deal with those too, Or are we talking about actually hitting other cars because they're not paying attention? There's different levels of it, obviously, but we deal with every one of them.
And what's the timeline? So if in the beginning of your career you bump into a post, and 10 years later you bump into a post, and 20 years later you bump in, so it all kind of goes together as the whole story. You have to look at the whole story and the behaviors of what was caused and what was the, how severe things were, was it because somebody fell asleep, or do they have a medical problem? We've had that as well. So you have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And then, like you said, it would go under progressive discipline.
And now with the cruisers, the way we have them, with the speeding and everything else and the cameras, it's a lot easier for us to deal with those now.
So we're a little different. So we're the same, but a little bit different. So not my department, but there has been a city department where there was a gentleman that had multiple accidents and the insurance company said, we're not insuring him. And if you can't drive the truck, you can't work. So, but that wasn't neither of our departments.
That could happen as well.
But that could happen. The insurance company could get the record of who was involved and say, we can't insure this person anymore. I was going to say before the chief did, and he hit the nail on the head, is you're talking a different policy at that point. You're talking progressive discipline and whatnot. The issue that's different with us than police is not only is the driver held responsible for the accident, the officer in the right-hand seat is responsible for the driver's actions. And so if that driver is doing something that is reckless and out of control, not only is he on the hook for the reckless behavior, but so is the officer that's sitting in the right seat. And so they both would be held accountable if there was wrongdoing and whatnot like that. And we do the same thing that the PD does every 2 years. We're training. We're putting our guys through our folks through the simulators. We provide advanced vehicle driver training through the fire academy. The majority of firefighters have gone through that, and it's been pretty successful with that. In addition to us, we have requirements for on-the-job training when it comes to driving. So in order to get qualified on a piece of equipment, you have to have 40 hours behind the wheel. And you have to have 20 hours and each additional year after that of driver training. So that's always a challenge, making sure that we're meeting that, but we require our guys to drive a lot. So.
I forgot to mention, thank you for bringing it up. Also, on top of the EVOC training, when they come into our FTO program, they usually, with this new FTO program that we start, the first month they are passenger in the car. Month 2 and 3, they're driving on the car, and then the officer that's training them helps them with learning how to drive our streets, or speed limits and all of that stuff. So they have 2 more months of that type of training. Thank you for bringing that up.
For us, it takes anywhere between 8 and 12 months to get someone qualified on the ladder truck.
I like what you had stated about the lieutenants and the sergeant jobs. I think that's being proactive, nipping something, in the butt every day, looking at the tapes, prevention. I mean, as I said, driver safety is important for both departments, but for the public too. I mean, we want everybody to be safe, right?
Right, and don't forget there's a big phone number on the side of our cars, and they're black and white, so the public certainly keeps us in check when they see our cars doing things that they shouldn't be doing.
The last thing that I wanted to ask, and I think it's to the commissioners, is I would like to be informed as a commissioner, maybe not with the personnel detail, of the name of the employee. If we had to do that, we could go into an executive session if we had to. But I would like to be informed as a public safety commissioner of amounts of accidents and the severity of accidents when they happen, or how many there are, maybe per month or a quarter or something like that. I like the other public safety commissioners' opinions on that. To keep us updated on currently, like they do with everything else. I just ask for some feedback on that. Your thoughts? You don't have to have any if you don't want.
No, I don't see a problem with it. I don't expect them to drop what they're doing to inform us that there's been an accident. I would say maybe a quarterly report. Hey, nothing's happened this quarter. Oh yeah, this quarter we had X, Y, and Z, and this is the steps that we're taking to correct that. But I think that could just be in their monthly meetings with us. I definitely don't want a phone call at 2:00 in the morning. Those days for me are over.
Oh, I'm calling.
Yeah, I know you will. You'll not.
I didn't really mean it that way.
Okay.
Just for the Public Safety Commission to stay informed, and if there's anything major, that we know about it.
Another line.
Exactly.
We typically put it in our monthly report.
Or put it in quarterly or something like that. Would be fine with me.
And we ding up trucks.
That happens. Things happen. I just want to make sure the Public Safety Commission is privy to it. And, if something major happens, or, we're just made aware of it and we're in the loop. I think it's important. Yeah. The public asks us questions and they expect us to ask the questions. So that's important to me to be able to just stay on top of it.
Yeah, our damage is, usually like a tree,
I get it.
Or something in a driveway.
Yeah, I get it. You guys have a lot on your mind when you're trying to get to a call. It's, I know driving safely is part of it, but there's a lot going on. I get all that.
Safety is number one.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I can't remember an accident that we've had with a fire truck, especially if it involved a civilian in addition to it, that we haven't reported public safety.
I know that the 4 or 5 ride-alongs that I've done with officers, I haven't done it as much with the fire department, but I've been on calls. They've rushed to get to calls, but at least the calls that I've been on, even though they might be going a little quick, they're stopping at stop signs, they're stopping at red lights, they're checking, and then they're moving pretty quickly to get to the call. So, and again, I appreciate the part about the lieutenants and the sergeants being able to have the time now with the promotions to follow up on all this day-to-day stuff. I mean, you can't do it when you have one lieutenant. So this is all these promotions are only going to make things better and safer.
Prevention is always better than postvention.
And then the only other piece is because I was asked by the public during the interview process, when you're doing the background checks, I just want to make the statement that I know you're checking criminal records, you check in driver safety. But what are your thoughts on if, a good candidate comes back, everything's great, but there's a little driving issue. I mean, how much is that weighed? What's the concern? I'd like the opinion of both.
I mean, we look at timing. We look at timing, what it was. I mean, we've had some that they get speeding tickets when they're 16, 17, 18 years old, and now they're 24 years old. They haven't had anything in 6 years. I mean, some of them have been horrendous. I'm not going to try to deny that. I think since we've started doing our process 10 years ago, when we started vetting this, we looked at that a little bit closer. So for us, if you have a 2-page driver history, you're probably trying to apply for the wrong job. Because that just means you haven't learned anything, But if you have a few things there that were minor, I mean, obviously if we're talking about, criminal offenses, or we're talking about, operating to endanger, things like that, there's got to be a reason behind that. We'll have to look into it, and that's what our background investigators do. But we've definitely hired some people that had stuff from, speeding tickets to, some things like that weren't criminal. I mean, I like to say that, everybody speeds. I hate to say it. And some people get caught, some people don't. But how close is it to you applying? Is it the same place, the same time, all the time? We've had that, but we look at it a lot more closely now than some of the folks that we had before.
Just in this hiring, we had a great candidate, did a great oral interview, came with some high recommendations, but the traffic history showed substantial problems, and they were denied employment.
These were some of the recent.
This was one of them. Yep, this was a recent.
And so that person was
not.
Yeah, they were moved all the way up until the background. The background showed the motor vehicle infractions, and they were significant enough for us to say no for that.
Okay.
Even though we liked that candidate, we thought that was a great candidate, and they came with training and everything like that. But for us, it was, paramount.
No, it was a little too early and a little too close to everything. It just,
I appreciate you letting us know that. Thank you. And you mentioned,
Yeah, so ours is done by HR. They do a background screening, reference check, pretty extensive checks. If we get a red flag, depends on the severity of the red flag that we get. And typically what we see is stuff in their early adulthood, that some of it may have been illegal 10 years ago, but it is not illegal now. So we take a case-by-case basis. But if there's any red flags that causes us concern, it disqualifies the candidate from moving. We have had incidents where there's been, a red flag raised. We pull the candidate, we talk about it with HR, and then ultimately the mayor has the final call, and we make a recommendation of whether or not we think the candidate is good to move forward or not.
Great. Well, thank you for answering the questions. We have one more task to do before we leave.
Yes, we do.
We have to approve the 2 lieutenants and the 3 sergeants. So do we want to have a motion for that?
Sure. I make a motion. Okay. You want to do them separately, or do you want to do them all together?
I think we should do them. We can do them pretty quickly separately. We can make a motion and I can read off the names.
Sergeants and lieutenants?
Yeah. We'll do
the group, or?
We'll do the lieutenants and we'll do the lieutenants first. Okay, so do you want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we pass a positive recommendation to the mayor for the hiring of the 2 lieutenants listed on the letter from Chief Hague.
Okay, Christopher Green and Jason Haskins. You have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Congratulations.
Now you're in trouble. He wasn't gonna leave till we met. I know, he wasn't.
It's not done yet.
Let's do the sergeants. We can get a motion in a second.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we advance our recommendation on the sergeants proposed by the chief as proposed.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
The 2 new hires.
And we get the two new hires.
We have the two new hires to approve. So the two new hires, Josh and Brandon. Can I have a recommendation?
I make a positive recommendation that we hire the two officers as proposed by Chief Hague to the mayor.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Super.
Thank you.
So all that's left, I don't think we need to go into executive session. So if you want to motion to adjourn, I second it. All in favor?
Nobody's gonna say no. I'm in favor.
Easiest part of the night.